the mic where it is for you, Tommy. You're calling. You tell me when you want me to go. No? Well, good morning, everybody. I'm David Jerome with the Chamber of Commerce, and it gives me great pleasure today to announce, I think, one of the most important relationships that we're going to see in El Paso this year, maybe ever for that matter. GM is going to be working with the city of El Paso on charging stations, and this is really great for not only job creation, but also for the planet. And without further ado, what I'd like to do is invite our city manager, Tommy Gonzalez, to come up and go into the city's reason for this. And then after that, we'll have General Motors come up and talk to you about what they've done and what they're doing. And then I guess it's questions and answers. So without further ado, I would like to have Tommy Gonzalez speak. Thank you.
Thank you, David. So y'all may be aware that well, good morning, first of all. Today we're here to talk to you about the progress of our strategic plan. You may be aware that this last December, the council updated the strategic plan, and in that session, what they came out of that session with, the main priority was we want to create careers, not just jobs, in our community. And so some of the ways that we feel like we can make that happen is by growing our existing businesses and helping them expand and grow. But the council has some strategies that they laid out, and some of them were advanced manufacturing, were ways to leverage partnerships with communities of excellence partners. As you know, we've been working with several partners in the community, and some of them include the county, include the school districts. We've become more competitive by using other taxing entities to help us be more competitive in incentives when we go to different companies to try to incentivize them to come here. We also wanted, as a priority, the council put forth, one of their strategies was to create and foster an innovation and technology environment. They wanted us to further those objectives. They also wanted us to begin the implementation of a smart community roadmap and the scalable projects that could include. So the two examples I'd give you, one of them is what we're here to talk about today, and that's EV charging stations. The other thing would be that, you know, we have over 200 facilities in our city. How can we retrofit them and make them more sustainable? And then, as you know, we recently passed by a vote of the public a 2019 public safety bond. And so that's an opportunity to make those buildings sustainable and more energy efficient as well. So those are some of the priorities that the council set forth. So how do we further these objectives? Well, as you know, the federal government has recently passed some legislation that funds a lot of these different opportunities for us because we can't do this alone. So the federal government has looked in investing in broadband connectivity, energy technologies, as well as infrastructure impacting our climate and transportation projects that would be promoting our community and also equity in our community, and be able to also include road, bridge, airport, and port of entry improvements. So some of the new opportunities to leverage these funds and the ability to compete for these funds is a major factor in helping us get ready and lay the groundwork to compete to bring in more jobs to our community. So today, in doing this partnership, we're looking at how can we work with GM to get some of their data so that we can go in and install more EV charging stations. I think that would be a great way where we can have those discussions with different companies in terms of a marketing angle and also a customer service piece as well when people buy more electric vehicles for El Paso. So those vehicles being supplied in our community is absolutely important to provide that other piece that's missing, because it's one thing to be able to have electrification in vehicles, but you have to be able to charge them. We're in a great position to leverage these funds. We've had an opportunity to work with our partners and take advantage of these opportunities. We're working with GM. That's why we're here today, to share that information with you. And also we've been working with our Congresswoman, Veronica Escobar. She's a huge champion for these initiatives. She has a climate action committee here locally. And Elizabeth Triggs, our economic development director, as well as Nicole Farini, the chief resiliency officer, serve on that committee. So this right here would be something that we would share with that committee as well as share with our REACT committee, and also give updates to our city council. The other partner that we have is our state delegation. They have already stepped up, and they helped us with $32 million from the state to help us be more energy efficient, or more efficient rather, and automate the bridges. So that they have already stepped up and been very helpful and been a huge partner. The University of Texas at El Paso, that's a huge partner because of the human capital they provide, as well as the El Paso Chamber, who has been instrumental in this process. And of course, the members of the City Council and our team here at the city. So this new initiative, what will it accomplish? Well, it'll improve our community's carbon footprint. It'll improve our region's electric charging station development, like I mentioned. It'll leverage our local talent at UTEP. And this will create the potential for higher paying jobs. If we're ready for the electrification of vehicles in the nation that's coming, and we stay ahead of that, and again, that's a priority of the council, we feel like what we're announcing and what we're sharing with you today really meets the objectives that the council set forth in the strategic planning session. And I think most importantly, it shows the power of a strategic plan and how you have to work a plan for a community of our size. And the fact that a plan is nothing without it digressing into some kind of work and some kind of funding plan. So that's the reason I mentioned the federal funds and how important that is and how important that is for our community. But we have been able to, since we put the strategic plan in place in 2015, present results to the City Council. This is no different. This is something that they added in the update in December, and something that we wanted to respond very quickly with, and something that's very important not only to our community, but also to our local, state, and federal elected officials. So I'll leave it there, and I'll turn it over to Rob with GM.
Thank you, Tom.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Hi, my name is Rob Kleinbaum. I am a GM Technical Fellow for Advanced Energy Services, and it's been sort of my privilege to lead this initiative and work with El Paso. First, I would very much like to thank Tommy and the city, and also the chamber, and the university, the utility. Have been marvelous partners, and we're just sort of really excited about what we might do. We're looking at a number of things, but the most important piece right now is to figure out how to get to a zero emissions world more quickly. The key to that's going to be the electrification of the automobile fleet. And probably the number one barrier to EV adoption is simply the presence of the charging infrastructure. And so what we're doing is working with El Paso to understand what kind of public charging infrastructure would help the adoption of EVs on an industry-wide basis. What we've done is, it's actually something that we've never done before with any other city or government. GM has its own models based on how people actually drive. So the idea is, if you want to know where a charger should go, you need to understand where they drive and how long they stay in places. The hardest part is getting data on that that's really sort of valid and verifiable and has integrity. Well, we understand that from our driving data. So we've developed our own internal model, which is kept quite closely, and we have used it to analyze El Paso traffic and dwell times and come out with a recommendation for where we think electric chargers would make the most sense, especially as EV fleets expand. Now, the thing is probably everybody knows, the most important thing if you're going to do something on a retail basis for people is getting the location right. You move it in one place, not going to work. Move it a little bit over, and it's perfect. And so what we've done is sort of work with El Paso to give them sort of a science-based method for figuring out where those chargers should be. The other piece, though, that's kind of exciting about this is not just will be an infrastructure that will support the adoption of EVs for the city, but we can also go after the question of getting everybody in. So you can say, okay, how can we put an infrastructure in places where maybe the natural economic forces wouldn't want them to be? How can people who will be able to drive affordable EVs, but may not be able to have, a garage park. Where should those go? So we're also working on that. Our CEO says the phrase is all in, and she means it. And so a big part of this is figuring out sort of the all-in portion of how to put in infrastructure that will serve the entire community, not just the privileged. Okay? We're thrilled to have this opportunity. El Paso is just a bloody exciting place. In addition to being a fun city, the coalition of the willing, if you will, between the city, the chamber, the university, the utility, makes it a really, really exciting partner. And we view it as sort of a major partner in innovation. And I think that kind of covers it, and ready for questions, unless I...
Yes. We do have a few questions, and so I'll ask just a few questions. There's a couple of questions coming in from the virtual world. How did El Paso become the site of this initiative? What makes El Paso so special?
What I would say is that the chamber obviously thinks El Paso's special, and we do everything we can to advocate for the city. Working with partnerships, though, as you've just heard Robert Kleinbaum from GM mention, the fact that we have a partnership with El Paso Electric, the city of El Paso, the University of Texas at El Paso, as well as the chamber and the business community, is what makes, I think, it so special. It's the people involved, the integration of our community coming together to work with a strategic partner like El Paso on how to do this is one of the reasons why, if I'm not too bold to speak, why GM is here. But Robert, maybe you want to...
elaborate on
Please,
that a little
yes.
bit. First of all, everything that David said, plus times two. All the elements of the community are here. They're all want to work together in a real partnership-based way. One point I want to make: the switch to electrification and what that means that General Motors needs to work with partners in a way that really never has before. We're on this journey, and we're kind of trying to figure it out as we go. Okay? It's going to require really big changes in a whole variety of ways in which we sort of work and live, and how we view vehicles, and the role of electricity, and the structure of cities, all of which will be incredibly positive, and all of which will help remove carbon from the atmosphere in a really powerful way. In order for us to sort of figure out where we want to go, we're going to have to do it in partnership, not in isolation. So the fact that El Paso was willing to genuinely partner with us across the board in a very collaborative way was what made this a really special city. Plus, the restaurants are really good, and the people are really nice.
Thank you. And then another question from the virtual world. How soon do you anticipate having a majority of electric cars out on the road? This is a big investment, which is the reason for this question.
Yeah, it's actually more than a major investment. The company has bet its life on electrification. Okay, if that initiative does not succeed, GM will not succeed and will fail. We are very confident it will. So the question is how many and when? We think by 2030, somewhere between 30 to 50% of sales will be EVs. We think that, we're working with the administration to make that be 50%. Okay? It will require, though, to the point of why we're here today, an infrastructure, okay? An EV charging infrastructure, both in the homes, also in the local area, and in the corridor that will permit it. Otherwise, we're not going to get those numbers. And that's why these kind of partnerships are really important.
So if I might add, just to bring a little bit of clarity to what we're talking about today, is that GM has stepped up and is partnering with us and sharing data with us that is extremely valuable, that shows us exactly where to place these EV stations. And the fact that we have federal funds that are at our doorstep collectively in all cities, we want to go after some of those funds in order to place those EV charging stations in the right locations. We don't want to just haphazardly put EV charging stations just wherever. And the fact that we have this partnership and they're sharing those metrics, that data with us, This is a science-based, very metric-based, very data-driven way of doing the right thing and stepping up and providing those grants from the federal government for projects like these in order for us to do the things that are necessary in order for us to be more competitive as a city.
Thank you. Any questions here in the room? No? We do have a couple of other questions on the virtual world. Has GM begun anything with our sister city of Juarez and those conversations? And will there be any manufacturing investments?
It's a good question, and
I've already asked it.
yeah, and the answer is, we're always looking for what the right opportunities are. Obviously, we have tremendous presence in Mexico, but what we really want to talk about today is the EV infrastructure, and that's kind of what I know about. I don't want to speak about something that I don't know anything about, although I do that often enough.
And I would just add that we did ask that question as a staff. I mean, we're not going to have GM here and not ask that question. And the fact that we are here and right next to Mexico, that is a plus for what GM is looking for in the future. We have these strong relationships, and we prove up what El Paso's all about, what they can do. I think that would be the first step in any future opportunities that might make themselves available. But right now, this is all we're talking about is EV charging stations.
Thank you. And there are no other questions here? Any? ¿Otras preguntas? No? Okay. Thank you, gentlemen. I think you all have another meeting that you have to run off to, so I appreciate everybody. Thank you for joining us. Thank you.